Terrain lying along the line of sight potentially intervenes and may even block line of sight, but not always. For instance, this level 1 hill lies along the line of sight. However, since each mech is 2 levels tall, they can both see over the level 1 hill, and that level 1 hill does not block line of sight. However, if the level 1 hill was located here, then the gargoyle's line of sight to the Zeus's legs is blocked. But the gargoyle can still see the Zeus's torso. Accordingly, the Zeus has partial cover. The gargoyle will have a +1 harder time to shoot the Zeus, and any attacks that might hit the legs hit the cover instead. However, if this gargoyle were on a level 1 hill, then the gargoyle would negate this level 1 hill as partial cover, because the gargoyle can see down to the Zeus's legs. The gargoyle is shooting downhill. Hence, the Zeus is no longer +1 harder for the gargoyle to shoot. Let's look at an instance where terrain would block line of sight. Let us say we now have a level 2 hill in between the mechs. Since the level 2 hill is 2 levels tall, and both mechs are 2 levels tall, this level 2 hill effectively blocks line of sight between the two mechs, and they cannot shoot each other, unless indirect fire is being used, but I'm not getting into that right now. Note that this level 2 hill will not block line of sight in the event that the units can both see above it, like this. Now the two mechs are both standing at level 3, so this level 2 hill does not block the line of sight, and neither mech gets partial cover from this level 2 hill. You must be adjacent to a hill in order to gain any sort of partial cover from it. In this case, the line of sight is still not blocked because the level of the level 2 hill is not equal to or higher than the level of both mechs. It is only equal to or higher than the level of one mech. So the Zeus and the gargoyle can still see each other and target each other. But with the level 2 here, suddenly things change. Because the mech is adjacent to the level 2 hill, that blocks line of sight between these two mechs completely. Woods work a little similarly to level 2 hills. This is because, whether light or heavy, woods rise 2 levels above their underlying terrain. These green hexes are just to demonstrate and help you visualize how tall the trees are. I do not use these green hexes in gameplay, because mechs do not stand on top of trees. They would fall down. So, in gameplay, the trees are just used like this, and you have to imagine them rising up to the same height as that hill. Consequently, these woods do not intervene in line of sight for the same reason that the level 2 hill did not intervene. But if we move the woods here, then these woods intervene for the same reason that the level 2 hill intervened. However, a single hex of woods will not block line of sight in the same way that the level 2 hill would. And naturally, if the mechs found themselves here, the woods would not intervene at all because they can see above them, as was the case with the level 2 hill. Let's now take a look at how many hexes of woods are required to block line of sight. Woods along the line of sight may block line of sight. we need 3 points of woods to block line of sight. Light woods is 1 point, and heavy woods is 2 points. So here we have 1 point, 2 3 points, and line of sight is blocked between these two mechs. Accordingly, we need 3 hexes of light woods to block line of sight. And of course, 2 hexes of heavy woods will totally block line of sight, as will anything more than what I just said. Line of sight is totally blocked. Now, intervening woods can make it more difficult for these 2 units to shoot each other. Because they must shoot each other through 1 point of woods, these mechs will have a +1 harder time to shoot each other. With 2 light woods in the way, these mechs will have a +2 harder time to shoot each other. And with a single heavy woods, these 2 units will also have a +2 harder time to shoot each other. Any woods a mech is standing in does not count against the points for blocking line of sight. However, this mech, because it's standing in heavy woods, is +2 harder to be shot by the Zeus. And of course, if a mech stands in light woods, the mech is +1 harder to be shot by the Zeus. Water. This is a depth 1 water hex, and this is a depth 2 water hex. Right now, the water hexes do not block line of sight at all. However, if the Zeus were to go into this depth 1 water hex, the water's surface rises up to the Zeus's waist, covering the legs but leaving the waist and torso exposed. Accordingly, the Zeus is +1 harder for the gargoyle to shoot at, but these 2 mechs still have line of sight to one another. Any shots from the gargoyle to the Zeus that would normally strike the legs strike the water's surface instead, and do not damage the legs. Now, if the Zeus stands in the depth 2 water hex, the water's surface rises completely above the Zeus, submerging all of it. The water's surface thus blocks line of sight between the gargoyle and the Zeus. These 2 units cannot shoot at each other. Although, if 2 units both stand in the same depth 2 or deeper body of water, then the water surface is above the mechs, and accordingly the water surface cannot block line of sight. So these 2 mechs have line of sight to one another, and can shoot at each other. Bear in mind that their weapon ranges may be reduced for shooting underwater, but those are rules I'm not getting into right now. An interesting case arises when we find ourselves in this situation. The Zeus stands in a depth 2 water, the gargoyle stands in a depth 1 water. The Zeus can target the gargoyle, but the gargoyle gets partial cover because only the legs can be seen by the Zeus. So the gargoyle is +1 harder for the Zeus to shoot. And any shots from the Zeus that don't hit the legs strike the water's surface and are ignored. The gargoyle can shoot the Zeus only with weapons mounted in its legs, because those weapons don't have to pass through the water's surface. And of course, at this range, the gargoyle could also simply kick the Zeus on the punch location table, mind you, because the gargoyle is actually kind of like there. So much for water.